right. Hello, everybody. My name is John Bartucz. For those of you that were not with me for the session earlier this morning, I'll reintroduce myself. I live in Rochester, Minnesota, and it's a little smoky here, so please excuse me while I cough constantly during the presentation. I teach at Rochester CTech, which is a public high school where students come and take various different pathways. Obviously, I'm the IT and computer science teacher. And I also do some adjunct work at RCTC and Winona State University. And I just started my PhD at the University of Minnesota in learning technologies and culture in STEM education. So today, or this session rather, we are going to talk about creating a course in coding rooms, adding people and adding assignments, and then setting up auto-grading, unit testing on those assignments. So the first thing I'm going to do here is share my screen. So hopefully you can see this pretty well. So when you log into coding rooms, this is the default screen. You kind of get a list of all your courses. I have a few of them. You might have a blank one. And the way to create a new course is just to click the plus button in the upper right-hand center corner. There are three options here. New course, new live classroom, and new workspace. If you haven't seen or if you weren't in the live classroom session, I highly recommend going back and watching that video. The live classrooms are one of the most powerful features of coding rooms, and it's really amazing all the things you can do with that. A workspace is just that. So Java, so test for now. It's just a place to run some code. So if you just want to show some code to some students or want to save different examples to show them and share with them, and you don't need to make a whole course and assignments and all that, this is the easiest way to do it. You can just create one. Obviously, there's a lot of different languages you can use. Create the workspace, and within seconds, you have a Java workspace or Python or whatever already up and running. And if you want to share it with students, you can just invite them by email. You can make them editors or viewers. This is great for pair programming. Have a student, or you can create it and share it with 2 students or 3, or however you want to, however many. So this is a great way to do really quick IDE programming without having to have students install Eclipse or something really heavyweight. But we are not just going to work with workspaces. So here's my workspace. I'm just going to delete that for now. And I'm going to create a new course. So there are 3 templates here already: Intro to Python, APCSA, which is a whole bunch of exercises that are auto-graded that you are welcome to copy and use for your own classrooms. You just use this template. I am going to start with an empty template. Call it July 30th PD Day Java. And I'm going to use Java 8. I have no reason to use anything other than the latest version. But down here, what you'll see are sections. So if, for example, you are teaching multiple sections of AP, or in my college classes, I often have multiple sections. It makes it easier just to create multiple sections to keep grading more separate. However, I also use it even within a single class. Sometimes if I have high flyers who have taken a lot of programming before, as a way for me to give them extra challenges to do that the other kids not see. And likewise, I might give slightly different assignments to students who need a little more scaffolding. So as we'll see, when I create my assignments, I have template code, and some kids might need a little more template code than others. So you can actually have, you can make sections for whatever you want. And as we'll see in a moment, it's really easy to, assign things to specific sections. But for this webinar, I'm just going to create a main section and not fool around too much with subsections. So here is the sort of default room for a course. You can see that the title's up here. There are no assignments yet. I don't have any live classrooms yet for this. And again, we're not going to cover that in this session, but definitely something to check out. There's a grade book. Nobody here yet. Sections, I only created one main section. And then the roster. So right now I'm the only one, but I am going to invite everyone to this course. So I'm going to copy this URL, and this is what I would share with my students. Yeah, you can add and remove sections anytime. Good question, Tanya. So you are all welcome to join this class. And then what I'm going to do is, once this webinar is over, I'm going to ask Sasha to go ahead and make you all teachers in the class. So right now, while I'm going through this, you're only going to be students, and you'll be able to see exactly what students see. But after this course is over, we'll make you all into teachers so that you can come in and you can see all the things I've done and copy the code. However, with great power comes great responsibility. So anything you change in my course as a teacher will be changed for everybody else. So again, we'll make you teachers so that you can see everything, but please only copy things and inspect things. Don't edit this classroom for other teachers, because then it'll change it for everyone. All right, so that's how if you have students already using coding rooms, then you can just use this code, or you can use this link. Either way works. All right, so let's look at the roster. Look at that. We already have a whole bunch of people here, which is great. Again, we don't have any live classrooms right now for this one. And so I am going to go ahead and create a new assignment for everyone to do. I'm going to call it Basic Java. Sure, why not? So when you create a new assignment, you're automatically put into the overview section. And this is actually a really cool feature, because you can include all sorts of different things. So you can include images, you can include tables, you can put in code, you can add, instructions and bullet lists, links, all sorts of, the sort of typical formatting for Markdown. So I actually already have a assignment here, and I'm just going to copy it to save some time. So what I did was I created a TestMe class, and I put in a little stub for the students so that they have to fill it in. And there's 3 different methods that they're going to have to fill in: a multiply, a divide, and is even. And they have different parameters and different return types. So, and we'll see why I did it that way in a moment. But this is, the overview of the assignment. This is what students are going to see. So now you can see that there is an assignment here. So I can assign this, I can publish this if I'm ready to. Again, a nice feature is you can work on assignments without having them appear to the students. So it's published now, so everyone can see it. If you are much more organized than I am, and say you want to create all your assignments over the summer for your fall semester, you can actually release the assignments later on. So if you don't want to, give the students an assignment on recursion their first week of class, you might want to change this release date to, I don't know, 2021 December, I don't know, let's do it over Christmas break, 27th, right? So you can set, you can set future dates for these assignments to appear to your students. I'm going to have it just go right now because I want you all to be able to see it. And let's make it due, I don't know, in a week. Okay, so I'm expecting everyone in this class to do all these by next Friday. And you can, in addition, have a hard deadline. So say I give you a week grace period so that even if you hand it in late, it will still allow you to submit. It will mark it late, but it will still allow you after the due date to make submissions. However, it will not allow you to submit anything after this date to prevent late submissions. So if you have hard deadlines for your course, after the AP exam or after the semester's over, or first quarter, second quarter, whatever that is for you, you can force students to not be able to do that. But then, if a student is has some emergency, you can override that. So anyway, these are pretty useful features. So if I had multiple sections, they would all appear here. And I could either click publish to all, or I can set these for each individual section. So if, I'm running a section of this in the fall and a section in the spring, then I might just do it that way. If I have a section of, like I said, high flyers or students that need to have more scaffolding, I might not assign specific ones to them. But this one is I'm going to publish to the main section that everybody's in. And you should all be able to see it now if you go into the classroom.
John, I hate to interrupt you, but I just want you to be aware that we had a waiting room issue. So about 20 people were stuck in the waiting room. So we do have some new people. Sasha posted the link. So if anybody's having issues, please just mention it in the chat with getting into the course that John's going over. We apologize about that. Also, we have the survey there for you to get the credits for the session. So make sure you click on that survey. Thank you, John.
Thanks. So I'm going to do a quick 30-second recap of what we did so far. In the main coding rooms area, I just created a new course. It took me into here. I created a new assignment using the new assignment button. I called it Basic Java, and this is the overview. So you can use Markdown, you can use all these buttons to format the assignment however you want, the instructions for the assignment, and make it easy for your students to understand. Then I went in and assigned it to this particular section. You can have as many sections as you want, and set a due date and a prevent late submissions date. So now I am going to create a template. So what this allows me to do is provide some code to the students, right? So as the students go on in the semester, I provide less and less code for them, but especially at the beginning, obviously, when they don't even know what public static void means, I provide a lot of code for them. And the template is the way to do that. So the template that I have, I created a TestMe file that has the public class TestMe object in it. So I'm just going to copy and paste this over. I'm going to create a new file called testme.java. And I'm just going to put all this in there. So just to save myself some time so I don't have to type all this in, you can see that it's just your basic vanilla class. It has these stubs because the assignment says I need to write a multiply, a divide, and a is even. So because you are all beginning Java programmers, I created the method for you, and I just have it return 0. I add a couple comments to help the students a little bit. This is where you fill in your multiply code. You know, this is where you fill in your divide. This is where you fill in your is even. So in this case, they have to have return values, obviously, or it won't compile. But it just returns 0 and false no matter what. So it tells them what they have to do, but that's about it. I tried to make it at the beginning as easy as possible to focus on the lesson I'm trying to teach so that they don't have to worry about, you know, writing the proper method definitions or anything like that. I do that for them so they can focus on how do I write a multiplication algorithm. And then in the main class, what I do for them is I provide a little bit of testing, but not a whole lot. So again, at the beginning of the semester, I will provide them more of this, maybe like 3 different multiply examples, 3 different divides, 3 different is evens. But part of it, in my opinion, is knowing how to test your code. And knowing how to test your code, especially, you know, off by 1 errors and things like that, is really important to becoming a good programmer. So when you run this now, obviously it's going to give the wrong answers because it creates the TestMe object and calls multiply, but multiply just returns 0 every time. So I go through all this with my students. I show them that this is 0. I show them that this is where it's getting 0 from. If I change this to 10, right, it's going to print out 10. So they, when they are testing their code, need to play around with these different things and make sure that what their methods are returning are what they should be. So it's really up to them to do some of the testing before they submit to the Autograder. So I'm just scrolling through. So just checking out some of the questions here. Okay, so now that I have, yes, that's exactly what I'm going to do, is create some unit tests now. So now that I have this template, any of you that have joined the class, if you want to create your, or if you want to try creating a solution, it will populate your workspace with the code that is in this template. So the first thing that I'm going to do is go ahead and create a model solution, and it's going to do the same thing. It's going to copy the template into this model solution for me. And obviously it doesn't, do anything except what the template does right now. But if I go into TestMe and I say return A times B, and I say return A divided by B, and if I say return A%2 equals, oops, 0. Then when I run it this time, it should give me the correct answers. All right, so this is the model solution. This is where you would put your model solution. And you actually technically don't even need to make a model solution. But I find it's very helpful to make sure your template is the way you want it. And obviously, when you create your tests in the test bench, you know, it makes it easier to test your tests if you have something that you know is correct. You can, Joe, you can do static if you want. Again, this is just one simple example of a way you can use this. So you can use whatever Java you want to. It's a full Java, you know, compiler interpreter. So this is just one way, one simple example of how to test this. So now I have my template with empty methods. I have my model solution, which works perfectly. So now I want to create some tests for my students.
John, before you do that, we got a couple people asking about, they're not seeing the template. So can you just show, open up the assignment from student view and show them how to reset and explain that a little bit?
Great idea. So if you want to see what the student sees when you create your assignment, under the Assign tab, there is a student preview link. So you can go ahead and click the, well, I can, you're not teachers yet, but when I click the student preview, it creates a workspace just as though I were a student in this class with this assignment. So you can see exactly what the overview looks like. It's formatted exactly like it is for students. You can see my submissions and test runs for this assignment. But I'm going to go ahead and click Open Assignment Workspace. And I'm just going to make this a little bigger so you can see. This is a copy of the template. Yeah, no, that's okay. It's okay. I know some people opened it before I made the template. That's fine. So let's say you've gone into here and TestMe, right? And you have somehow totally messed up the code and you don't remember what it was like before and you just want to scrap and start over again. So the way to do that is to click the reset button in the upper right-hand corner here. So if you click reset, it warns you that it's going to delete everything and it resets it back to the original template or the latest version of the template. So right now, if you created this, if you went in as a student and started before I finished saving the template, just go ahead and click this reset button. And it will copy the latest version of the template. The other nice thing about this is, you know, if you forget to put something in the template, for example, and the students haven't worked on it much yet, they can always reset as well. So we have some questions in the chat about looking at this code, the unit tests and everything. And yeah, if you join this classroom as a student right now, you'll only be able to see what a student sees. You cannot see my model solution. You won't have that tab in this workspace. But after this session is over, we will make you all teachers in this classroom so that you can see the test bench, the model solutions, and the template and everything like that. So any other questions right off the bat about the overview, how to assign things, creating a template, adding files? Oh, one thing I should mention. So when I was running practice AP exams, most of you know that there's part 1 and part 2 for a lot of questions, and you have to have a solution to part 1 in order to do part 2. However, if I make an assignment for part 1, and then I make an assignment for part 2, which has the solution to part 1 in it, it's not going to take, it's not going to take long for students to figure out that the solution to part 1 is in part 2, and I'm just going to copy that code. So what you can do is create jar files and upload them in here and use those as libraries in your solution. So if you want to provide some code to students without giving them the actual code, then you can upload jar files and use them. Yes, it is possible to decompile jar files. Yes, you can also obfuscate jar files. So if you want to get into that with your students, we can definitely talk about that. It's sort of beyond the scope of this session, but just to know that if you want to provide hidden code to your students, you can do that as well. I tend to only do that if I'm giving practice AP exams. In the meantime, I usually just let them see the code so they can fill it in and use it and run it and learn from it. The purpose of the model solution is twofold. One is so that I can make sure that the template is set up correctly and everything is running correctly, that the problems are valid and solvable, but also because when I go into the test bench, the way I test my tests is by running them on the model solution, because it's quite possible to create tests with a typo in them that wouldn't work for anyone and all your students would get 0%. So having a model solution allows you to make sure you're testing the things you think you're testing. Another reason is once my students have, once the deadline has passed, I usually go through the model solution with them so that they can see how I would do it. It involves a great discussion because, if other students will allow it, I will compare my code to some of the other students' code, and we'll, talk about the differences. I have no problem coding in front of students. I think that's a great activity, and comparing my code with other code is always useful, just to show that there are 100 ways to skin a cat. All right. The model solution is hidden from the students. Yes. So as you are all students right now, hopefully in your workspace, you can't see that. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and go into the test bench now. And this is where you can create unit tests that are graded. So they will automatically be put into the gradebook. So when you add a test case, there are actually 3 different types. I'm going to test my multiply function first. So I'm just going to call it multiply. You can call it whatever you'd like. You can assign it as many points as you would like. So, maybe your basic test cases are worth 1 each because you told them that those are going to be test cases. And more advanced test cases might be worth more. It's totally up to you. The 3 types are input and output comparison, unit testing, and manual grading. So manual grading is what you'd expect. It doesn't automatically grade. You have to go ahead and assign it a specific grade. So that's useful for, things that don't have standard answers or specific, specific outputs. Input-output comparison is really useful for doing things like, please input your name. And then the person types in their name. And then you say, hello, name. How are you today? So those kinds of programs where really simple, they're learning scanner functions, they're learning to print things out to the screen. But once you start getting beyond the real basics, input-output comparison gets pretty tricky because it is very finicky, right? If they have a space after a period, if they have, something wrong, if they type something wrong in the input, it's just, it works well if you have very specifically defined input and output, but I strongly recommend using unit tests instead because it is much more tightly controlled, essentially. You define the methods for them, and then you call those methods specifically in a specific way. So I'm going to go ahead and add a unit test. As you can see, it's called multiply. And the first thing that it has is feedback that it gives the student if they have a test failure. So for example, I might be testing 4 times 5, and I'll say, multiply 4 or 5 should return 20. And again, you can give, for more complicated assignments, you would give a lot more feedback. But since this is a simple one, and I'm just showing you where it will appear. So this is the template that they give you for testing. You can have some setup. So if you need to create some objects or, get some data from somewhere, if you get into really complex stuff, there are setup and teardown methods here. I can't think of a time that I've really used them, honestly. I tend to stick everything in the actual test case. So you can rename this test case into anything you want. I'm going to leave it as default test case just because it works fine for me. But this is where you put the actual logic that you are testing. So the way that you do that is using something called assert equals. So again, I'm just copying from a different workspace that I made earlier so that I don't have to type this in while you wait. So I just create a new TestMe object. And then I say multiplying 3 and 4 should equal, 3 and 4. Should equal 12. And then I use this method called assert equals. And what that does is it checks whether the first parameter is the same as the second parameter. So it's going to call the multiply function that the student wrote with these arguments, and it's going to compare whatever gets returned to the first argument. And you don't have to, but it is strongly recommended that you put the expected value first. Almost every test suite that I've ever used expects the correct value to go first and the value you are testing to go second. And that's the way JUnit does it as well. So if I run this right now against the template, it's going to fail because my template always returns, I think 10, I set it to most recently, right? So it tells me multiplying 3 and 4 should equal 12. It failed because it expected 12, but it was 10. Because remember, my template returns 10 no matter what. And then the feedback is printed down here below. So this is what the student would see if they ran it with incorrect code. It says there is one failure, expected 12, but it was 10. And then the feedback that I set up gets printed below. If I run this against my model solution, it runs perfectly because clearly I am the greatest programmer. So multiplying 3 and 4 should equal 12. It says check mark. Okay, one test run. So all I really had to do was this line right here, assert equals. So Daryl asked, can I put in more than one test at a time? Absolutely. So I'll get into a little more complicated stuff later on, but you can do, you know, as many of these as you want in one test. And again, it's going to come back as succeeded one test because all of those are part of the same test case. So this is where you need to decide, am I adding more of the same kind of test? Like these are all kind of the same test, so it makes sense to be in one test case, right? Maybe if I started multiplying something else, I mean, multiply is too simple, but you know, if I were doing some kind of sorting algorithm and wanted to sort different types of objects or things like, you know, I would use different test cases if the tests are different enough to warrant it. So not just for different methods like multiply and divide, but say, you know, if I'm doing a sorting function and I want to sort an array of integers versus sort an array of doubles versus an array of strings, right? I would use different test cases for all of those because they're very different and they should be tested differently. Right, exactly. Divide 10 by 0. You might want to have a separate test case for that. But you can also, I mean, you can put any Java code you want in here. So if you want to run 1,000 tests with random numbers, you know, you can do that, right? You could, you know, I'm just going to, you know, say 100, I'm just using pseudocode here, but you could do, you know, x equals rand1, y equals rand2, right? And you could do assert equals x times y multiply x, y, right? And pretending this is a valid loop 100 times, it will create two random numbers and assert that them multiplied together is the same thing as the students multiply with them together. Coding Rooms does have a timeout eventually. Yeah, you could put as many prints as you want. So I'm going to delete that just so it's cleaner for everyone. Okay, so this, I mean, this works great for, whoops, I didn't want to delete all of them. For this, but let's try our division. So I'm going to make a new unit test case for division. And I'm going to say 100 divided by 9 should equal 11.111111. Can anyone tell me what the problem with this test case is going to be? Rounding. So Evan was the first out of the gate. So yeah, essentially it's rounding, right? It's how do I compare? If I have an assignment that tells people to calculate pi, how do I create a test case whether it's equal to pi, right? Eventually, the computer is going to run out of memory. Nothing is equal to pi, right? So the way that Java and most other programming language handle that in their test cases is they have something essentially called almost equals. In Java, Oh, I need a new TestMe object. In Java, the assert equals can take an optional third parameter. And that is the delta. So that is the maximum. Use this instead of. That is the maximum difference between the expected value and the student's value. If I omit this, right, Java is going to get really confused because it doesn't do a good job of saying, you know, what is exactly 16.666 infinitely repeated, right? There's no way to accurately compare infinite or irrational decimals, right? So you have to have some limit of how far you're going to check. And you can make this, you know, as big as a double. You can make it, you know, very, very precise if you want to. But typically, yeah, you can make it 15 digits if you want. But typically, if they got the first 5 digits right or 6 digits, they're going to get the first, they've got the solution, right? It's correct. So if I run this on the template, again, it's going to give me a failure because it always returns 0. So dividing 50 by 3 should return 16.66, but it was 0 because my template always returns 0. And it gives me that feedback. If I run it against my model solution, it does it correctly. Okay, one test. So even though inside the computer, you know, I didn't get 16.6 infinitely, compared the first 6 digits, I did. Or I guess 8 significant digits, if you want to be precise. So this is something to keep in mind if you are testing doubles, is you want to have some kind of a delta there, just to make sure you cover rounding errors. All right, so the last kind of test case I want to show is Boolean. And so what I want to do for this is just show the last kind of test you can run, and that is assert true. So in this case, instead of assert equals, I say assert true because is even returns true or false. So you could use assert equals and just have it, you know, true, comma, is even. But just in case you come across assert true, this is how you would use it. And again, if I run it on the template, it'll fail because is even always returns false in the template. So is even should return true. Oh, and I didn't put any, sorry, any feedback in there, but you know, you would put in some feedback, you know, is even 66 should return. If I run it against my model solution, all of the tests pass. So now I'm going to go ahead and assume that most of you have, well, a lot of you have probably been filling in the multiply, divide, and is even. Are there any questions on how I created those, how to use them? You know, you can add, oh, one thing that I did talk about. So let's say I had something really complicated. I can write my own solution in here. Which one was this? Double. Right. And instead of having a fixed number here, right, I could just call my solution here. And that way I can, have random numbers, I can have loops, I can have, whatever that will run my solution versus their division and just assert that they're equal to each other. So you can add more methods in here is just what I was trying to get at. You can, if you need helper functions or anything like that, you can put them right in the test. So are there any questions before I move on about multiply, divide, is even unit tests? So you can just if you're looking for ways to test, you can just look at JUnit. The documentation is okay, but the way it's set up in coding rooms, it's really, really straightforward. You literally just need to, include whatever object they're working on, and then use assert equals to make sure that when they run their function, it returns the same thing. And Joe also has, oh yeah, Sasha just posted some tutorials. So Doug, what I do for my tests is I kind of separate them by type. So as I was alluding to earlier, if I'm just, multiplying integers like this, I will put them all in the same test. I'll just put, 10 different basic tests in, and then I'll create a new test case called advanced tests and do more complicated stuff. So again, to use sorting as an example, I might sort the basic tests case might have 5 different sorting of small arrays. Then I'll have add a test case a little more complicated, maybe with negative numbers, with repeated numbers. And then I'll have a third test case, which has randomness in it to do like, or huge arrays or something like that. So just general types I will put in different test cases. And then one thing to note is that when you run the tests, they are all run at exactly the same time in different threads. So the ordering might not be what you expect, but that's something we are definitely working on, so that the students can see like maybe easy tests, medium tests, hard tests, or something like that. Okay, so I'm going to go into the grade book now, and you can see that some of the people here have done pretty well. So here's Gloria, got 100%. So I'm going to go ahead and actually look at her code. So this is Gloria's solution. You can see the template is the same, and I can run it. And then in TestMe, we can see that she has very efficient algorithms for multiplication and division, and is even. Now, I'm a little bit suspicious because this student was not really paying attention in class. And I think because this is pretty straightforward assignment, she might have just copied it from someone else. How can I see if she actually typed it herself or copied it? If you look right beside the run button, there's a little playback button. And I can actually step through all of her code, line by line, character by character, as she typed it. So I can see that she typed all of this herself. This happened to me in one of my college courses this spring, where somebody was typing for several days, getting all the answers wrong. And then all of a sudden they had a perfect answer that passed all of the tests. And either he was able to type that in less than a millisecond, or he copied and pasted it from someone else. And then also, if she did copy it and I want to override the grade, even though she has 100% here, I can go ahead and edit it to 0 because I think that she copied from someone else. And obviously I would talk to her about that. So once I have my grade book, I can go in and look at individual students' work. I can look at all the grades. I can also export all of the grades into CSV or JSON files as well. I don't actually revise grades in coding rooms myself, because we use an external system for actual grading. So I deal with that externally and talk to students individually if I have to change their grade. So I've only got a couple minutes left here. Yes, the students can run the tests as many times as they want. That is correct. Yeah, absolutely. So let me create another quick assignment here. And I'm going to assign it. Publish to all. And if I look, at the grade book, oh, you know what? I want to look at the grade book for the whole class. You can see now their overall grade, the basic Java grade, and then the test 2 grade. So this is where you would download a CSV file, the JSON file, lowest score or top score, whatever you want to download. And you can see individual assignments. I can sort by all of these, Great questions. So if they don't submit, you can still go in and see their workspace. Generally, what I do is when I'm looking at this screen right here, you can see who hasn't actually submitted anything. There's just that line there instead of a percentage. And I'll just have a chat with them saying, hey, I noticed you haven't submitted anything for this. What's going on with that? So. Is there anything anyone would like me to show that you haven't seen yet? If anybody joined late, make sure you join the class here, because in a little while we will make you all teachers. And again, let me just remind you, when you become a teacher in this class, you're changing it for everyone else. So the best thing to do is make a copy of it into your own account. And then please take the exit poll here in the chat Sasha just posted. Just take you about 30 seconds. And if you have any questions, we are definitely available.